This is Ross Feingold on Taiwan Hashtag, hosted by Storm Media. Today we'll be talking about recent developments in Taiwan-China relations, especially following the KMT's formal nomination of Han Kuo-yu, the mayor of Kaohsiung, to be their presidential candidate in the upcoming presidential election. The most significant development in China-Taiwan relations in recent days was China's announcement of a defense white paper. For Taiwan, there was a very clear message that China has not renounced the use of force. So naturally, China says this is not targeting the people of Taiwan, whether it was in the paper or the statements by spokespeople after the paper was released. They say it's targeting a small group of separatists that want to separate Taiwan from China. So from that perspective, the message from China is not different than what we've heard for many years already, but it's no less threatening to the people and the government of Taiwan. So they are threatening to invade if Taiwan goes down the road of independence. Not new, but there it is again in the latest white paper, which got a lot of international media attention. So for those who haven't been following China-Taiwan relations, you might think this is something new, but actually it's more of the same. Following the release of the white paper, we now have this week exercises by the Chinese military, both to the northwest of Taiwan Island as well as to the southwest, or basically across the coast from Taiwan, on the other side of the Taiwan Strait near the Chinese coastline. These military exercises are extremely threatening to Taiwan. The government of Taiwan, of course, will say that we have it under control, we're closely monitoring the situation. That is certainly true. But certainly our listeners or our viewers outside of Taiwan need to keep in mind that just monitoring the Chinese military exercises puts a tremendous strain on Taiwan's national security apparatus. It puts a strain on the military that needs to do the monitoring, whether it's the Air Force, the Navy. Military needs to be on higher alert. Intelligence agencies have to gather more information. And as we know, the intelligence agency, the National Security Bureau, is involved in a scandal and its attention might be diverted. So the timing is certainly great for China to engage in these military exercises, although that's probably coincidental and it's not necessarily in response to the ongoing scandal at Taiwan's National Security Bureau. Be that as it may, China is engaging in very large-scale military exercises in two locations off the coast of Taiwan, warnings to shipping, warnings to aircraft. Taiwan needs to monitor whether or not Taiwan will have a proportionate response is certainly something to watch in the coming days, but it's a concern for the people here in Taiwan, and it's not sufficient for a government to say it's nothing to worry about. People should be worried about it so that they fully understand the threat to Taiwan's national security that China poses and the threat to civilian shipping and air travel that these kinds of military exercises pose as well. The United States is also certainly monitoring these exercises, perhaps coincidentally, perhaps not. Another U.S. Navy ship transited the Taiwan Strait in recent days, right before China began its military exercises. Again, those military exercises by China are not in response to the U.S. Navy transiting the Taiwan Strait, because the U.S. Navy transit would have been planned ahead, and we've seen a pattern of these transits throughout the course of 2019, which is certainly welcomed by the government of Taiwan as well as supporters of Taiwan in the United States, and generally we're glad to see that the U.S. Navy is showing a more robust presence in the Taiwan Strait, which is international waters, despite claims by China to the contrary. Another China issue that continues to get attention here in Taiwan this week are accusations about Taiwan being invaded by China's red media or meddling by China in Taiwan's politics. Why is this such a significant issue? Because again, the KMT just formally nominated Kaohsiung Mayor Han Kuo-yu to be the KMT nominee for president. If we go back to the Kaohsiung mayor election last year, as has been discussed in quite a lot of detail in the domestic as well as recently in the international media, there are accusations that pro-China media helped get Mayor Han elected. There are accusations that netizens from China helped get Mayor Han elected by liking his YouTube videos or his Facebook posts. Is there media in Taiwan that is pro-China? Of course. Are there people who put complimentary messages about Mayor Han on Facebook or YouTube or other social media who are based in China? Yes, we know that this is obvious. Whether or not it changed people's voting decisions or how voters viewed the opposing candidate, that actually is a matter of some debate. And if we make an analogy to the United States, it's similar where we say, you know, Russia did meddle in the election. They did put a lot of things on social media, but it actually didn't impact voters' decisions. So, red media, does it exist? We'll be looking at that throughout the summer and the fall as we go into Taiwan's political campaign for the president and the legislative election, it's certainly going to be one of the hotly contested issues. What is actually the level of influence that Chinese media has, or the Chinese government has, over Taiwan media? What is the influence of China on social media in Taiwan? A lot of accusations flying back and forth. Some of them are accurate, some of them are not. So we have to watch this very, very closely. And I'll say to our audience, always question with specificity. There's a lot of broad accusations. Sometimes they lack specificity. So is it true that people from China write things on Facebook to compliment Mayor Han? Yes. Did it change any voter behavior? Those are the kinds of specific questions that need to be addressed by government officials here in Taiwan if they're actually going to make the case to the public or other stakeholders like the media, international media, United States government is looking at this closely. If they're going to make the case, they need specifics. If people have violated the law here in Taiwan, they should be prosecuted. It's not enough just to make the accusation. If people have taken illegal funding, for example, if they have violated the laws on media ownership, for example, of course they should be prosecuted. So let's hope that the investigation agencies in Taiwan do their job and really do identify any wrongdoing that violates the law. The other China-related issue that is part of the Taiwan-China relations discussion this week are the ongoing events in Hong Kong. We know in recent months that the Taiwan government has been very outspoken in its opposition to the extradition bill, which has now been withdrawn by Carrie Lam, the Special Administrative Region Chief Executive. So it looks like Taiwan was successful from that perspective, because Taiwan said if that law passes, we will not accept extradition of criminal suspects pursuant to that law from Hong Kong to Taiwan. We know that the Taiwan government has been very outspoken on social media, Facebook, Twitter, in support of other goals of the protesters as well, such as direct elections for the Special Administrative Region Chief Executive. It doesn't look like the Beijing authorities are going to agree for that to happen. In Hong Kong, there was a press conference earlier this week where the officials responsible for Hong Kong policy from the central government in Beijing made clear that they're still supportive of Carrie Lam. They didn't talk about great changes to Hong Kong's political system. We should expect, though, that Taiwan's political leaders from the government will continue to talk about this. Why? Because we're going into a democratic election here in Taiwan. It makes for a great contrast. We have democratic elections here in Taiwan. They don't have them in Hong Kong. We support them in Hong Kong. So we should expect President Tsai, Foreign Minister Joseph Wu, who's also been very active on social media talking about events in Hong Kong, we should expect that to continue. Big problem for Mayor Han, the KMT nominee, Han Kuo-yu. As we've discussed on previous programs, he was originally a little reticent. People asked him, the media asked him, what do you know about, what's your opinion about Hong Kong protests? He initially said, I don't really know anything about that. Later changed his message to say, I'm against one country, two systems. It'll never happen in Taiwan over my dead body. So again, he's probably going to a more traditional KMT view of cross-strait relations, which is 1992 consensus, and he would talk to China under that framework. However, what does it mean for his policy towards Hong Kong? Does he support the protesters and their goals the way the government of Taiwan currently does, the elected leadership, the president, her appointed leaders, in whether it's the premier or the foreign minister? Is that going to be Han Kuo-yu's positions on Hong Kong specifically? That's something to watch going forward, because it's not enough for him just to say, I support 92 consensus, I don't support one country, two systems. He's also going to be asked, what does he feel, or what's his views about the protests in Hong Kong specifically, the police response, for example, because we know the government here in Taiwan is going to say that there's a disproportionate use of force against people who are seeking to exercise democratic rights. So that's definitely going to be something that Han Kuo-yu is vulnerable on, and the Taiwan government is going to continue to talk about that. Which leads to the next issue when it comes to China issues, and what is Taiwan's response, and what does it mean in the coming months as we go into a presidential election. In the United States, we talk about a whole-of-government response to China issues. That means various agencies, whether the Department of Justice, the State Department, other government agencies, they're looking at what China does to meddle in United States politics, China's influence on university campuses in the United States, intellectual property theft, theft of military secrets, and other type of military national defense espionage committed by China. That is what a whole of government response is. Is the government of Taiwan going to be implementing a whole of government response in the coming months? And what would that mean? So we see that again, the foreign ministry talks about events in Hong Kong, even though that's not the agency responsible for Taiwan's relations with Hong Kong. It's actually a different agency called the Mainland Affairs Council. There's ongoing discussion in Taiwan about more restrictions on technology products from China. Will those government agencies make some decisions to really show that Taiwan is going to join the United States in being very restrictive for China technology products? Another example of a whole of government response that actually is yet to be fully implemented here in Taiwan. Media regulation. Again, what is the National Communications Commission, the media regulator, going to do to investigate these accusations about China's influence over Taiwan's media if these things are really something where there is a legal or regulatory violation that the NCC can take action on? Or will they not write new regulations? Again, something to watch for a whole of government response. But will this become a party response? In the aftermath of the Kuomintang's National Congress over the weekend, when Huang Kuo-yu was formally nominated as the candidate, we see not just the government, but also the DPP, the party headquarters, being very critical of Huang Kuo-yu's China policies. Is he too accommodating towards China? Is he going to be a vociferous advocate for Taiwan's democracy and for Taiwan's national defense? Or is he going to be too willing to sign agreements with China that will sacrifice Taiwan's sovereignty? We see this message coming from the party. So for the government and the party, they have these two levers. Which one will be the lead on China issues? Because we are now in an election campaign season. That is something to watch. And we see that the party does have a very effective way of making these messages known to the public and also to the international media, because the DPP is very effective at English language communication. So something to watch is when it comes to China issues, is it going to be a whole of government or a whole of party, or both of them working together as they help President Tsai seek a successful re-election going into this January election? This is Ross Feingold, and you've been watching Taiwan Hashtag on Storm Media.